Well, hello. Welcome again to the Contact Exec Podcast. I have got some great guests here today. Carly, Alena from Hardline. Welcome to the podcast. I really do appreciate you guys. I know it's been a little bit. We had a conversation. We had something scheduled. Then we had to do some cancellations. We had to move some dates around. So I'm kind of glad that we're finally sitting down today to just, rap about construction. I want to know more about Hardline and how things are going there. So welcome.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to chat. We had such a good time just on the intro call, and we were like, this will be a fun time. So we're excited.
Yeah, well, that's what we want.
I'm always down to do a podcast with someone that I think I could have a beer with. That's like our, criteria.
Yeah, well, Yeah. If you're drinking with me, though, you're probably going to have to sip a little whiskey. That's all I got to say.
Now we're talking. That is also my drink of choice.
Yeah, right?
That's
I get it.
That's iconic.
Yeah, we had a nice intro conversation when we were kind of planning this podcast. And it comes down to, hey, how did you get here? And I want everybody to kind of know your path on that to start off with. So let's just give me a little bit of background. Let everybody know, how'd you get here? Why in the world would you want to be in this crazy ass business?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up around construction. My dad, my babysitters were pretty much roofers and siders. I was around it from day one. But I saw my dad working, and he had a successful business. He still does in Canada. And then I played ice hockey, kind of went the route of college. And then after, I kind of felt this itch to go back into the industry because I felt like I could really make an impact with everything I learned. But then I started working like my dad does, which is kind of like a daughter's nightmares to become just like her father in some ways. I mean, some ways it's not, but
depends on how you look.
Yeah, he's the best guy ever, but he was ancient with his tech. So we put our heads together and we got to this solution.
Yeah, I had an indirect path bringing me to construction because this is actually my first professional experience in the industry. I've spent the last 10 years of my career in early stage tech and finance, which if you know people in finance, you'd probably know why I chose to leave and come to construction.
Yeah.
But for folks that haven't, I've just been really refreshed with just how real and open and honest and interesting people are in the industry. I've always been close to the industry, I'll say. And during COVID, I got really close with a interior design firm who was kind of struggling with some of the problems that we're solving today. And I would sit in their office and try to help them learn new tech and try to just create processes for them because I was this finance business girl, whatever that means. And I kind of got my first look into the real challenges of adoption. And I think that sometimes the industry gets a bad rap because it's not a lack of adoption because of ability, but just the sheer number of things that people have to balance on a day-to-day basis. It became clear to me that me and my perfect process coming in, it's not something that they had time for. And so
it's alignment.
Here.
Right.
Yeah.
I always, so I look at it it's a great point. Adoption is one thing, but adapting is another, right?
Yeah.
And most of the folks are so busy with their day to day, and I don't care what business you're in. We talk about construction, and they've got got core competencies, and whether that's being an estimator or whether that's being a superintendent, but your core competency is really focusing on how do I make this build work, right? And it's really not, and hasn't been, how do I make this technology work for what I do, right?
Yeah.
And it's different if you have a tool, right? You have a tool, you can get a brand new hammer drill, you know what I mean? Those kind of things, you probably already know how to use it anyway, but you see what I'm saying? There's nothing really new that's kind of come down the pike. Now, technology is a little bit different though, because maybe they've been a superintendent for a long time and they've seen the spreadsheets. They don't necessarily know how to manipulate them. They don't develop them, or, maybe they do. But again, it's a step away from that. It's step into something new. It's like, man, don't I already do this? And why do I have to spend time on it? Because I got 50,000 other things on my plate of absolute shit that I got to get through. And literally, you're going to stack this on there too. It's like that scene from, My Cousin Vinny. But
I need to watch that movie.
Me too. I will. It's my homework.
Yeah.
Carly, yours kind of a family business.
Yeah.
Alena, you're coming in from a kind of financial side, and I don't blame you for wanting to escape that world over there. It seems like that's just a bit haphazard. They're just making shit up as they go.
That's what it felt. I'm not going to lie. That's what it felt like. I was just like on a computer, up all day. Like it didn't feel real sometimes.
Yeah. Like at least you can see something being built like in the real physical world. And that's such a cool thing to see, like pre-con to handoff. Every time I'm just always so amazed how people get together, and it's honestly kind of more impressive after getting into the processes of it, how chaotic it is, and it still ends up being, finished.
Yeah.
Maybe not on time or on budget, but
right. Yeah. Sometimes it may seem like it's a clown car full of, folks out there running around. No, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, and I see that. So tell me about Hardline and your thoughts behind it. Like, how did this, you saw an opportunity in the construction area. How does Hardline work? Kind of tell me about it a little bit.
I hate to put you on blast, Carly, but we can't talk about our origin story without talking about
the moment,
an issue that Carly had at work that led us here. So
yeah,
really,
it was the year of 19. Just kidding. So back in January, I was working on a commercial project, managing it remotely because my family's company's in Canada, and I was doing some stuff down here for it. And I had worked with this flat roofing company. They were like family friends for 15 years. And it was a change of 2 inches of insulation that was communicated over the phone. They agreed to do, and it never ended up getting done. And they did a core test. It ended up being, $150,000 on our margin. So yeah,
wow.
that was a tough hit. And instead of being like, Dad, I'll stick it through with your company and make it up, I will leave the company and go, find a solution with Alena instead. So that was a moment Alena kind of was like, this is not real. So that's the origin. Alena could probably get into the actual product. But
yeah, I think it started first and foremost just solving that problem, meaning we understand that jobs run on verbal conversations, and that hasn't changed. Whether it be that you make a handshake deal, you communicate something in a change over a phone call, or you've just been working with the same subcontractor for 30 years. So you kind of
trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
Exactly. The challenge is when something gets messed up, that trust can very quickly go out the window.
Yeah. Trust turns into, amnesia.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Selective amnesia is something we like to talk about.
Well, it's not selective. I promise you. It's like, I forgot everything I said from January on to such and such.
Yeah.
I didn't. No, I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I love this. I'm going to get some popcorn.
Yeah, buckle up. So understanding that, and I think especially Carly having been raised in the industry, seeing how things hadn't changed, we thought the best way to solve this problem was to do it without requiring people to do anything. So kind of enter stage left, there's the first idea for Hardline, which was really just a tool to document the important project changes that happen on site and over the phone. As we have explored this space more and talked to a bunch of people in the industry and dug more into the problem, we've kind of understood that communication in general is just a shit show. And it's not for any one specific reason. It's because there are hundreds of stakeholders on every project, 10 different ways to communicate through Procore, through email, through text, like whatever it might be. And so, our first version is like that. First, let's solve this documentation problem and the decision problem. But then through that, let's try to streamline communication across every job.
Right. Well, you definitely hit on something there. So, right, there's several different ways to communicate during a job, right? Email is not necessarily the best one because it's very siloed communication, right? You get a kind of siloed communication between folks. It's not shared by everyone. Procore is supposed to combine all of those things, but not everybody has access. You know what I mean? Especially if you're, like, say, a GC covering to a sub, maybe the sub doesn't have all the same permissions in the Procore level, but they still should have the email thing. Again, information gets lost. I think the most important part is that on the job site, when you're dealing with problems, and this is like ground level builders dealing with builders. And when I talk about builders, I'm not talking about project managers. I'm talking about people, hands on the job every day. You know what I mean? They're on that site and they realize things, right? They discover things during the build. Like, hey, by the way, this massive chiller that you think are going to put here is not going to fit on that pad, right? Or I've been there, like literally had a job downtown Dallas. The print was, it said, hey, by the way, we're going to fit this heat duct, this exhaust duct up through this closet over here, you know what I mean? And go through 18 inches worth of, reinforced concrete on the second level. And so I go look in the closet and no, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to fit that in there. It's never going to work. And so we have to reroute the whole system. And this is, again, builders on the job going, yeah, man, that's not going to work. My HVAC guy was like, yeah, we got to figure something out. Where else can we go? And so suddenly we're taking the plans of the engineer and going, I probably should have done this instead because this is reality as opposed to what's not reality. And so those conversations, again, documentation after the fact, right, would have been great to have because as with any great projects, it ends up in some sort of arbitration at the end, right? Because then the client's asking, well, wait a minute, I thought all that's, covered. It's not a change order for me. It's not my problem. It's like, well, okay, I get it. Not your problem, but site conditions. And so it becomes this convoluted structure of conversations, right? It's like, how does this order, how does that date coincide with this date when you said such and such and they said such and such and we had to change this and the materials had to change. So absolutely. My question is this something that you would use? Is this a tool that you would use like on the site to, talk about recorded conversations during a meeting time, those kind of things too?
Yeah, like we have, like our first and foremost use case is phone call. And we actually don't record anything. We just have an agent that is sitting on the conversations and taking notes, only specific to construction. So you can disregard what you said about having X for dinner, whatever. It won't document that. But the on-site mode is really for people who want to do a quick daily log, a walkthrough, take punch list items with some photos, and it spins it up in a way that is formatted for your system, like Procore, ACC, or FieldWire. So
it's got an integration layer to it that says, hey, by the way, when you're ready for this, I'll drop it into your daily notes that are in Procore and any other like Autodesk, ACC, those kind of things. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's really meant to be flexible for every use case of someone on a job site. Because like that example that you just shared, like let's put your hat on for a second. You have this long day, this one detail that's probably a 2-hour part of your day. You're talking about that closet. Then you move on, you do something else. So like now at the end of the day, you're supposed to just open up a computer and go and type a bunch of notes about it in your system or send an email. Like, probably not. You probably aren't going to do that. And it's not because you don't want to. It's because there's literally no time to do that. So a perfect use case would be take out your phone, talk to your phone, remind me I got to do this thing or add this to my daily log at the end of the day, draft up this email, whatever, just like you were talking to a colleague. Or better yet, when you're going through a walkthrough with, the site manager or whoever, you just turn it on and it'll capture all the problems that you notice and all the things and find the right place to document them in your system.
Will it connect to connect to your calendar too? Like if you're doing that, say, hey, by the way, I'm supposed to meet with you. I'll meet with you. Are you committed to meeting with somebody, in next week on something like, oh, by the way, the plumber's coming back in. He'll be back on site such and such. I committed to a 2-hour meeting or an hour meeting, whatever.
Yeah, that's in the roadmap to have all your calendars connected and to be able to auto put a meeting on the schedule or change a schedule. I
Yeah.
think coordination is really the biggest pain point is coordinating all these people all at the same time, really, when there's an issue.
Yeah, so I think this gets to I've been posting lately and talking about lately, and I'm going to do a whole series on it in January coming up about big difference between kind of like last planner system, which is kind of what we're talking about. Last planner system meaning the builders being on site, talking to the other builders, going, okay, how are we going to make this work so we can meet the schedule requirements? Okay,
Hmm.
because last planner system really, for me, the way I see it, it's kind of about the schedule, but it's kind of not. It's kind of like the execution points that have to happen in order to meet somebody's expectation of what, and whether that's a schedule expectation or whether that's a productivity expectation, whatever that is, right? A lot of times it just relates back to the schedule. And so I'm going to do a whole thing. But again, if you don't document, some of these things, you miss some of the details or something got, missed in the detail when you were talking about it and it didn't get written down, didn't get in an email, maybe didn't get in an RFI where it needed to be. All of a sudden that interrupts what we call flow of the job, right?
Hmm.
And that's a big thing in lean construction, is flow, cycle time, those kind of things. The most interesting part about that is that no matter how it influences it, whether it shortens the period of time or it lengthens the period of time of the cycle, it's always going to affect the flow. It's kind of like that state, and Carly, you're going to understand this, right? When you're in the game, right? As an athlete and you're into the game, there's this perfect, sometimes there's this perfect thing where
Hmm.
you're in it. You're
Yeah.
in the flow.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happens when builders get with builders on a job site and everybody knows kind of what's happening next and you're just connected.
Yeah.
And it goes like that. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's just right. You're in that flow. And I think a lot of people don't relate to that sometimes. But when it's there, it's like magic, right?
Yeah. Oh, I literally, you take me back to hockey so much of that because I know that exact feeling where you're like not you're calm, but you're on it.
Hmm.
And things are kind of everything is going almost too well in a lot of ways.
Hmm. It's like
Uh,
you're right. It's just that it's like razor thin, right? It's
yeah,
razor
yeah,
thin edge that you're kind of on, and you're just like, oh man, it's just right. And
yeah,
there are points of time when a project manager or a superintendent, somebody's on the job site, they're like, okay, this is going way too well.
when's the ball gonna drop?
Yeah, do I have? And again, it's like keeping the balls in the air, right? You're
Yeah,
juggling all these balls. It's like, which one's going to drop first,
yeah,
right? And
yes,
so,
yeah,
again, tools to help keep all the balls in the air. That's a big deal because a lot of times you
yeah,
don't have it. And I want to get to that part about, is it the tool that breaks down, right? When something gets dropped, is it the tool that breaks down, or is it the person or the people that break down?
yeah,
I have a POV on this. I think it's just more of the dissonance between how the tool works and how the person
You're
works.
using big words on me. I don't know about dissonance. Like, come on.
The gap between
Uh,
how software works and how people work.
yeah.
Like back in my other career in finance, software makes a lot of sense because you sit in front of a computer all day every day. So you are literally trained and born and you do that. You sit in front of a computer, you click buttons, you copy and paste. Like that's what a corporate job is. Um, on a job site, though, that's not how you work. You've never been trained to work that way, especially if you're a skilled laborer. Like you have a million other things to worry about. A computer is not that. And so I think it's just a gap, a disparity, a shortcoming, honestly, of software to not meet those workers with the way that they already work.
Yeah.
Which is talking with their hands. It's not, filling in fields in a complicated dashboard.
Yeah. I think it's something like that. I've always taken it as when I start to introduce technology into kind of more of that hands-on field, right? I don't
yeah,
care if you're an electrician, plumber, welder, whatever you are. I start to introduce technology. What I start to introduce to them is logic and a structure, right? Which a lot of times um, you get on job sites, kind of like the the vent duct example,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of times you get on site and it's not necessarily logic that kicks in. It's like, how do we fix this? And I don't have to go through step A, B, C, D to get to that logic. I'm already there, right? As a builder, that intuition kicks in and says, okay, we already know this is not going to work. I don't need to go through committee, or I don't need to run this through 15 different algorithms to tell me that I need to fix something here, right?
Yeah.
That we've
Yeah.
got to come up with a different solution. Because, you know, what technology does, technology runs into a problem and it gives you an error message and stops. Okay. That's different, right? Technology can't stop. So it runs into this set of rules that I think that's, you know, that's where the friction or the dissonance, as you call it, that's where it comes in. That's where the noise begins to happen, because you're like, your tool is sitting there going, well, can't really do that. And we need to go back through a set of steps to kind of figure out where our error lies. And the guy on the ground is sitting there going, yeah, no, I know where the error is, and it's sitting right in front of me. Doesn't really matter who made it at this point. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that whatever happens here, this thing gets done by Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I think when we start to introduce that into their world, I'm one of those guys. I'm offended. Like, I don't really need you to tell me what's wrong. I can see that. I mean, I could have told you this was going to happen 3 weeks ago, but you didn't want to listen to me because I was working on something else. You know what I mean? Or I wasn't a part of that planning session when you were making up this fairy tale schedule over here. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
when we don't get those folks involved early and
Yeah.
get their institutional knowledge, that's when we've got a problem. Now, see, and I think this is important for, you know, like for Hardline, is like, let's just not use it on the job site. Let's use it for, you know, everything. Let's use it for those planning conversations. You know what I mean? Why not share those notes from those planning conversations with the people, you know, with the subs and the people that are going to be building it, to see if, you know, that logic makes sense while they're coming up with, like, again, those unicorn schedules that never seem to work out.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Absolutely.
plan. I mean, I think we made the conscious decision to first and foremost build for the field teams,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's the most underserved segment. I don't mean underserved like there's no tools out there. There's a million platforms out there for field software that I think are missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start first and foremost with building for that segment. Like, we want to make something to actually help them, and then sort of use that to expand into other use cases. The big vision and the dream is to have this journey through Hardline that starts with the first phone call to the owner and ends with handing off the keys, because every part of the project is rooted around conversation and discussion, and you know, scheduling starts well before you break ground. Having that intelligence is important.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that construction has gotten away from the building part of it, and it's all been focused on how do we just, we're going to build it, but how do we manage the risk around it so we don't lose too much,
Yep.
right? And it's been more about, how do we cover our ass in case something goes wrong so that we're not at fault and we're not holding the bag. Carly, to your point, the reason you're in this business, it
Yeah.
sucks when you're at the end of the line sitting there holding the bag for the end of the deal, and you're like, yeah, I just took $150,000 hickey on this
Yeah.
deal. Not good, right? Because why? Well, did I not document it well enough? You know, was that handshake not really authentic? You know, those kind of things. And that does happen probably more often than not. Nobody likes it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, most people we talk to document the amount of money that is spent on disputes in their company, or
Yeah,
the amount of,
but they don't document the amount of money that costs them, that what it cost them to get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And I also think you mentioned a good point, which is the CYA, the liability driven aspect of this industry. And yeah, I don't know. I think that that's really something to look at, and it's there for a reason, because it's obviously also just it's also just like people are out there putting their lives in danger to build some of the structures that we live in. So I understand fundamentally why part of that exists. But I do think that there is, I think Hardline has the opportunity to build software that protects that user, like protects them, like Carly, it protects her in that instance. The firm kind of by default, but like more so that person and their ability to work and do their job well. 'Cause I think that that's still kind of a gap is like who, let's protect that person.
Yeah, well, I guess, when everybody starts to talk about, why is it so expensive? Why are things so expensive? Well, they stop to talk about, they're always talking about the cost of building materials and the cost of that. It's like, look,
Yeah.
you're not paying for that. That's not what you're paying for, right? Most of the time, you're paying for the expertise on how to build it, but the hidden underlying truth of the whole thing is you're paying for the liability that they're taking in order to take on your job. You're
Yeah.
paying for the risk, and
Yeah.
people make a lot of money taking on risk, and
Yeah.
and so that's why I think a lot of times people get a little fidgety around technology, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Because what's it?
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah,
When we were talking to Suffolk, we were in the Boost program. They did this presentation of like finding the decision maker with technology and like who is really your customer. And at the top is obviously the owner, the GC, and then all the thousands of subs, and then insurance, whatever. And really, the game of construction is just pushing liability to the person below you, and it's just a waterfall. And whoever is really at the highest risk is kind of the person you want to try to sell to.
But that's the person that's like calling the shots and mandating things, and they have kind of the power and the contract and all those things. And it's just, yeah, when you see it kind of laid out like that, you can see why that's problematic. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
problematic. That's a very political way to put it. It's very
Yeah.
problematic. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of sometimes it comes down to end of the line.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing that's going to happen with technology. Technology is going to still include those people because, as technology becomes affordable, especially at the analytics part of it, because this is the part that a small contractor, medium-sized contractor needs to understand. You're a small contractor, you're a medium-sized contractor, I don't care what you're doing. You want to advance in this business, you want to grow your business, you want to be a viable entity in this business, no matter what you're doing. You're going to have to digitize your information so that you can bring those receipts to the table when you're bidding that job or when you're trying to win that contract under the GC. Even if you're a small GC, you're trying to win that contract from the client, because as these analytical tools are more pervasive in the construction industry, and they're more well known and understood to be sources of verifiable truth,
Mhm.
you're going to have to be involved with those. You're going to have to be into those. You're going to have those in order to be able to qualify. And that's going to happen sooner than later. And I know there's a lot of folks out there. They're young and they're savvy. They're in the business. They understand. They're using technology to kind of vertically integrate their own construction business, right?
Mhm.
But what I'm talking about is some of these more established that have some of that institutional knowledge. Maybe they're still using Excel spreadsheets. Maybe they're still using paper. Some of the safety programs I've heard about, still there's a lot of companies still using paper on safety programs. It's not going to happen for them unless they get their ideas turned around and changed, and they start developing tools, like a Hardline, to really start to digitally document exactly what's being said, what's being done on a job, so that they can go back and not only use it for their risk management, not only use it for their CYA, right? But actually being able to analyze that data that you're collecting, right? And learn historical lessons. Because there's another big thing. You know that in the industry, like there's 95% of the data that's collected doesn't even get used.
Yeah.
All the pictures that have been taken, all of the notes that have been in the 3-ring binders that, some superintendent's been carrying around since 1948, it never gets used. It gets
Yeah.
filed somewhere to be lost in forever, right? And this is what's going on. And it's pervasive in the industry. It's pervasive.
And let me take that and times it by 2, because what that statistic is showing is like real hard data, right? So 95% of the data that's out there on a job site that's been produced, not being used. Now, what happens when you open that can up to data that's just never even collected? Every conversation, every job site walkthrough, every inspection, everything where you don't write something down, that's a data point that's not even part of that statistic, which makes it feel much bigger and more difficult and impactful, I guess.
Well, we could go into a whole nother conversation on the, the disciplines of a municipality and their investigative practices and, how they do things. Because that's a whole nother, if we want to talk about the reasons for backlog and the reasons for delay, let's,
Yep.
Yep.
we could just use
A lot
California
there.
for an example, as to how many hoops you have to run through and just batshit crazy, decisions that people make based upon some sort of municipal level to say, oh yeah, we need to have X amount of caissons, even though it only
It
needed
doesn't make sense.
2. Right.
Yeah.
It has to make sense, right? And then at the inspection level, it has to make sense. And if
Mhm.
it doesn't make sense, well, how much does that delay and impact a product?
Yeah. It's so crazy seeing even like in our backyard, the Palisades being rebuilt. A lot of the buildings that are put up right now or the new homes have been built off site in the desert because they were so tired of waiting for the everything to pass.
They just
And
give
it's
up.
like it's just
Well, and most people are selling. I mean, it's actually quite sad to see the areas that were really affected by the LA fires because a lot of people it might not be a matter of money, but just a matter of just sheer challenge to get something rebuilt in an area like that because of all the hoops you have to jump through with the city, with the state, with the fire department. Like it's
Well, how long's it been now? What's it been
almost a
now?
year.
almost
Almost
a
a year.
year.
And
Right.
there's not much going
There's
on.
nothing fully rebuilt, by the way. Not
That's
one.
I heard something the other day. It was like maybe 10% of some of those homes have been rebuilt.
10% of them probably have broken ground. Like if we took we could do this. We could send you some footage. We could go walk around just
Yeah.
up the hill, and you probably have 10% that have framing.
Not
If-
even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they've still got inspections to go through.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, talk about backlog. Like that's a
Yeah. So again, this goes back to the whole thing. The documentation of the conversations that are being had
Yeah.
out there. Again, I think it comes down to an accountability level, right?
Mhm.
I believe, and I don't care if you're in California, if you're in Nevada, Texas, whatever. I believe that the municipalities that are involved in these construction projects are just as liable for these delays and some of this stuff because of, I don't care whether it's mismanagement or incompetence, whatever you want to call it. I believe that they are liable for a lot of that.
Yeah.
And they should be held accountable to it, even though it's very, very tough to fight City Hall. I can't a lot of times on that.
Yeah.
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 I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, we'll all put our capes on and we'll become superheroes for fighting the man.
Yeah. So down.
There we go. I'll join you on that.
Yeah.
I'll join you on that. That sounds nice. That sounds like a good time. Great the numbers.
So we were talking before we jumped on here and started recording this. We were talking. You guys have started. Your pilots are
Yep.
up and running. So kind of
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that. Maybe you can't mention the companies, or maybe you can, but kind of tell me how that's going. How the pilots. What's the feedback you're getting? That kind of thing.
Yeah, we have quite a few pilots that are running right now, and we're constantly, taking meetings from companies or GCs who want to participate and give Hardline a shot. So, if there are listeners that are interested, like obviously reach out. But I'd say we kind of have a mix of different job sites and projects that we're being used on. I'd say the core use case and the thing that we've really learned the most is that users have the ability to establish their own trust and relationship with Hardline. And that feels kind of like jargony and weird to say, but it's true. It's very self-directed. There's no one particular way to use it. So we've had a couple of users that downloaded the app, immediately became super users, loved it. They they manage their to-do list through Hardline. They send their daily logs through Hardline, blah, blah, blah. Then you have your other folks who are a little bit more busy, maybe a little bit more tech averse. There's one in particular I like to talk about, a project manager. He's new to the industry and he turned on Hardline, kind of forgot about it. A couple days later, had a crazy busy day. He took, I think he told us like 10 calls back to back. He was like, no, this is crazy. I didn't even get to finish my thought before I had to hang up and answer another phone call. After that, he realized that he had had a ton of stuff that he had committed to, talked about, and a ton of
Couldn't
stuff that
remember it.
he couldn't remember. So he remembered, oh, I had this thing running. I'm going to go back and
Oh,
check it. He went to Hardline, and
yeah.
there's the 50 tasks that he had committed to from the past 3 days. And from that point on, he started to use it, in his own way. But I think it's cool because the feedback that we've gotten is that like people have their own journey with using it, which I think is important because everyone kind of has their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I love the idea of that. And I also love the idea of having that little AI agent maybe being on there going, oh, yeah, you can't commit to that. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
You're already right.
100%.
The
Yeah.
feedback that says, yeah, no, don't say
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Even though I just heard you say yes, don't say yes to that because you can't
Yeah.
do that. Right.
Yeah.
So you bring up a really exciting opportunity for us and something that we are working on is providing that sort of experience. I think that the first step is like you have this puzzle piece of a project or this puzzle of a project and you're missing all this communication information, verbal information. So we put
Mhm.
those puzzle pieces in and we get to see the full picture. And then the next step is being able to anticipate when something could go wrong. Or being able to take that next step, like, oh, we know that there's a weather delay on Friday. So now, as we see that you're on a phone call scheduling roofers on Friday, we're going to tell you can't do that.
Yeah. It's a bad
Um,
idea.
yeah.
like-
And
It's like I tell people, stop trying to schedule me for concrete in the middle of winter. It's just not going to happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
basic
you know,
stuff like that.
What you do?
Yeah.
You don't have a globe? You didn't see where
Yeah.
this location was?
Yeah.
Weather app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's only not that hard. Like,
It's actually not
right there.
rocket science, but
Uh,
I think that's what it really comes down to is making something simple, but like, a simple aha moment for them after they make their first call or maybe their 50th,
mhm.
and helping them in ways that they didn't really realize they needed.
And you hit it right on the head. I had a superintendent for one of the companies I work with say exactly that thing. He goes, Rob, can you just make it easy? Just can you give me something that it doesn't add to my day? It actually takes something off of my plate rather than putting something more onto it. And technology people, please listen out there at this point in time, put on your listening ears and listen. This is what they want. And they don't want another tool like it's something they're going to put on their belt. What they want is something to take something off of their plate so that they don't even have to touch it. They don't, and, we got to take that to heart. We have to listen to the people that, you know what I mean? And I know we've talked a lot about the field, right?
Yeah.
But I think I think the same goes for, project engineers or project administrators,
Yeah.
project, project management folks. They want something taken off of their plate so they don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of conversation about AI and how it's supposed to augment the ability of the human, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I get it. That's great. Sounds awesome, right? But is it useful if now instead of getting to the answers that I need, I'm having to check your answers, to make sure that it's right,
Yeah.
right? Again,
Mhm.
are we, and I know it's a fine line to walk, but are we adding to the ability or are we just adding something on to the plate for them to kind of check now?
Yeah. We actually, it's so funny. We are like, obviously we're founders, so we're always looking at the new latest and greatest technology for us to make our lives easier, take something off our plate. And if I log into a new app after 10 minutes and don't get like an aha moment, or I feel like it's actually not going to do what it says,
Mhm.
I immediately delete my account. And I think that's like probably
I've done
because they
that
come
so
from
many times.
construction,
Yeah.
and that's how they are too. And I just feel like that's
Yeah.
like very much so what we talk about constantly.
Well, I just put myself in a super's hat and I'm like, oh, if all of a sudden someone told me instead of waking up first thing and checking my email, which is where my work centers, I have to go to this other app that will have part of what I have in my email, but part of something else. And then I have to remember to do that 3 times. Like, I'm not going to do that. In fact, that's happening with me right now with this like AI email tool. It's like, check your new inbox here. I'm not going to do that.
I hate it. Yeah. No, I
You
get
can't
it.
do that. It can't be another place to check.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
So I
lot of
agree.
times, okay, especially, smaller, I don't guess smaller jobs, medium-sized firms, you got one superintendent in charge of a lot of people, right? And that superintendent may have 4 or 5 different jobs, right?
Yeah.
And, for them to jump from one app to another app to try to organize all their information, like integration has got to be the key here where we're going to go to one place. And this is another thing they say to me all the time. We're going to go to one place, just kind of, I mean, obviously there's not going to be the easy button that we're going to be able to hit right now, right? But this is the direction we have to go in. Now, I want to talk to you too about that. You guys are, founders, AI industry company leading. Let's talk about just a little bit here. Large language models versus kind of they're talking about reasoning models. Guys like me may not understand what that understand. Here's what I hear. Large language models doesn't mean much to me. It says that there's a lot of language that I don't understand in it. But a reasoning model sounds, okay, that sounds right. We need some reason in our lives. Is that what we're leaning towards? That sounds like a better avenue to me.
Yeah. Okay. So this is funny. I am actually a bit of an AI cynic or critic, meaning I don't believe a lot of the AI is going to solve all your problems bullshit that's out there.
Mhm.
I think even like AGI, if we want to get technical, like at the end of the day, to me, AI is another word for a really great calculator. What you're doing is you're not creating anything new. You are ingesting data and analyzing it at scale and at speed. So I am skeptical of any tool out there that can come in and without a human at the helm controlling this AI or however you want to say it, can create something new, can solve a problem that has not been solved before. It's like you kind of mentioned this earlier, like it's really reliant on the data that you have. And so I'm skeptical of anything in construction or any other industry that comes in and says, like, we can create something net new. We can create new value for you. I think where we're at today with AI, which to me is just machine learning, it's data. Um, the use case is analyzing data quickly and helping you get to a solution faster. So
It's about the
maybe
data that it
maybe
ingests.
cynical,
Yeah.
maybe hot take, but yeah, I think that's more
I get
where
it. I love it. I do love it because it aligns with my thoughts on this. And if you're a construction company out here, just self-plug, if you're a construction out there and you need help with something, I'm going to tell you what you need help on right now. And the help is you need help on your processes and you need help with your people.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the people and processes go together first before anything else. Second thing
Yeah.
you're going to have to handle is the data that they're providing back to you, meaning the data that you have and the data that they're going to be providing to you in the future. All right.
Yeah.
Everything else is just a sideshow until you get those things in order. Right. It's kind of
Yeah.
like what you're talking about earlier. We were talking about adapting and adopting. Right. You can adopt all kinds of software. And we've seen it happen over the last 25, 30 years, right? Have
Yep.
companies adapt this legacy software that they thought was going to save them from the depths of hell, but it didn't, right? What happened is they got tied into it and then they started to realize, well, this is really only about 60 to 70% efficient, if that. Sometimes
Yeah.
it was 30. 70% of those implementations still fail today because it's again, we're not adopting software. We're needing to adapt to a new environment of how we approach this business. We need to adapt to a new process that says, by the way, if we're going to measure this properly, we're going to have to do it a little bit differently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Well, and
that's
I
what that
just
means.
kind of on that point, like if you go to our website today, I actually don't even know if we say AI anywhere on our website
Mhm.
because I don't think that's the right way to position even what we're doing. And I almost think that you kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you're AI first, especially with construction, because of that data. I mean, you just said it. 95% of the data isn't used. So a tool that 100% relies on AI, to me, How? Most of that data is not out there and organized. So
Yeah.
I think that practically applying it in very specific
Yeah.
workflows makes a lot of sense. But you'll notice we're not, marketing ourselves as an AI tool
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, I think your example of the project manager who got 10 phone calls in a row and realized he committed himself to 50 different things is a great point.
Yep.
You don't know what you're going to run into during the day, so you have to have a process in mind about how you're going to handle things, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you need a tool in your back pocket or your tool belt that can help you handle, that punch in the nose that you're going to get every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Put some
Yeah.
gauze in it, maybe rub a little dirt on it,
Yeah.
those kind of things. But
Yeah.
again, that's what's going to happen, and those are the kind of things that we need. But I think we always, even as technology companies, are more and more into, I don't know to say they push their way into technology. Construction needs technology,
Yep.
but technology can't come from the same lens. We have to go into those first principle solutions, right?
Yep.
We
Yeah.
can't put a Band-Aid over it and say, I think that'll fix it because we did it this way in tech.
Mhm.
No, that's not it, right? We do have to take those first case scenarios and we have to say, okay, look, this is what we have. Not every company is the same, but they have similar situations, and here's part of the fix. Another
Yep.
thing I think we have to understand, and we have to, everybody knows this, but I think they kind of forget it, is that there's no such thing as perfect. Never has
Yeah.
been. And you're going to get, if you get 70%, maybe 80% out of your software, man, you're doing great, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody's working towards that extra 20 for that 100. No. Let's get 70, 80% out of it. Let's get it
Yeah.
going. And
Yeah.
then we can solve for that extra 5 or 10. It's never going to be perfect, right? But then let's go from there.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're in the room with us and our engineers. Like, we're big believers of the 80/20 because I also think there's just so much more to learn, and you need some, open-mindedness to how fast technology is changing.
hmm
And,
I think that's,
building for one use case, you're going to pigeonhole yourself.
well, look at this. If you think about the rule of 80/20, right? Was that Pareto's law, right?
Yep.
Something like
If you
that.
think about the rule of 80/20, Pareto's law, the reason that there's the 20% there is because we learn on the mistakes. We learn on the failures, right? We don't want it to be perfect because then we're going to figure out, well, it's perfect now, but when's it going to break? It's kind of like the kind of whole juggling the balls, being in the, when is it going to break? Because now we don't know. But at least if we're making a few mistakes and there's still something to fix, right? We've got a place to grow towards. I get really,
Definitely.
really worried when, Carly, I mean, I get worried when things are going too well.
Me too. I just know that I'm either one step away from, getting scored on a breakaway or scoring the breakaway goal. I think that there's something to be said about a lot of this AI noise right now. A lot of companies are just, who don't really have tech foundations, are jumping into AI, and they aren't looking at their processes and seeing, okay, what can we make out of what we have right now, and actually enforce, or I guess mandating certain
Yeah.
processes first, and then
They're worried. I think their worry is the first, how quickly do we break into the market so we don't miss a margin?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
not a good place to go from, right?
Yeah.
So for you technology companies out there that may be listening in, let's be really, really clear. Don't put something out that's not going to work, or just because you were trying to get it out there, it's a bad
Yeah.
idea.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, hey, how do people get a hold of y'all so that they can, maybe start a pilot with Hardline and start using your product? How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can show up at our address.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I
Yeah.
mean, anyway, we're accessible. Like,
Our
website,
website.
hardlineapp.com. We have a number of different ways you can contact us through our website. You can book time with us. You can just send an email in the footer. We're also happy to, give our sellout. Like, we live and breathe this stuff all the time. So we love to chat with folks in the field.
Yeah, I don't recommend giving your sell out to some of these characters, but that's all right.
We burned one or two times.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
That's so funny.
We take it in stride.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll put it in the, we're going to put the address, the web address in the show notes, everybody. So they'll be in the description on the YouTube channel and the Spotify notes. Now we're currently on Audible, which is, I'm expanding my reach, right, for the podcast. Yeah, it's very impressive. I know. Anyway, we're expanding our reach, but y'all, thanks for hanging out with me today. I know, 45 minutes goes pretty quick when you're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had so much fun.
Next time we're bringing whiskey, we'll mail it to you in Texas, and we'll cheers over the camera if that's allowed.
And it's a podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And we don't have to have a reason.
It's also the industry to do that in. There's no rules.
There are no rules.
Well, definitely want to get back together with you maybe late January, February, get back on a podcast, start talking about how those pilots are going, and just talk more about the industry, because obviously you guys have got some great insights and great instincts. So I really do appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, that's it for this episode of Contact Exec. Like I said, if you want to reach out, we're going to put the website to Hardline on, and we'll probably put Carly and Alena's LinkedIn contacts in there as well if you want to link in with them. We'll have it all there. But until then, until the next time, you guys, everybody be safe out there and build well.